Welcome to Echoes of the Mind. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're diving into a wound that often goes unseen: childhood emotional neglect. It's not about the obvious scars of abuse, but about what didn't happen: the love, the presence, the recognition that was missing. The absence becomes a presence, and it echoes throughout a lifetime. When we think about childhood trauma, we usually picture dramatic events: shouting, violence, abandonment, cruelty. But neglect doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it's silence. Think of a child running home from school, holding up a drawing they're proud of. They stand by the kitchen table, waiting for someone to notice. But the parent is busy on the phone. Dinner comes and goes. The drawing is set aside, never mentioned again. Now imagine this happening not once, but dozens, maybe hundreds of times. What lesson does that child learn? That excitement is something best kept inside. That pride should be hidden. That their joy is not worth sharing. Psychologists call this an internalized neglect schema, a pattern where the brain wires itself to expect dismissal. The child stops asking, stops reaching, and begins to believe that their very needs are a burden. So what happens to that child years later when they're an adult? They walk into a room and feel they must shrink. They succeed at something and immediately wait for it to be overlooked. They enter relationships and secretly wonder, am I too much? Or maybe not enough? This isn't about a lack of talent or a lack of worth. It's about a foundation built in silence. Attachment theory, first developed by John Bowlby, shows us that children thrive when caregivers consistently see them, mirror them, and respond to them. That reflection builds trust. But when a child's bids for connection are ignored, the opposite happens. They begin to doubt that their needs are real at all. Neuroscience confirms it. Repeated dismissal activates the stress response. Cortisol floods the body. Over time, the nervous system rewires itself to expect rejection. The child may look like just a quiet kid, but inside, their baseline becomes anxiety. Their emotional regulation turns fragile. This is why neglect, though invisible, is just as real and damaging as overt trauma. A bruise heals, but the silence? That becomes part of how someone sees themselves. If any of this resonates with you, pause for a second. Follow Echoes of the Mind, leave a like, and share this episode. It helps the channel grow, but more importantly, it helps bring hidden conversations into the light. Here's the paradox. Children who grow up ignored don't all look the same. Some become fiercely independent, taking care of themselves before anyone else can let them down. Others turn into high achievers, perfectionists chasing recognition they never received. Some become peacekeepers, avoiding conflict at all costs, believing harmony is the only way to hold connection together. Others stop trying entirely, slipping into apathy. And beneath each adaptation, there's exhaustion. The independent child grows into an adult who struggles to trust. The high achiever becomes the perfectionist, never satisfied. The peacekeeper becomes the people pleaser, terrified to say no. And the one who gave up carries apathy into adulthood, weighed down by hopelessness. Another common response is what psychologists call fawning. It looks like extreme compliance, overgiving, people-pleasing. It's not just kindness, it's survival strategy. The hidden belief says, if I'm useful enough, they won't ignore me. And here's the cruel twist. Many adults who grew up ignored feel both withdrawn and hypervigilant. They may pull back emotionally, but they're also scanning every interaction, every meeting, every friendship for signs of rejection, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. This constant alertness keeps them safe, but it also keeps them tired. So where does healing begin? Not with perfection, not with instant confidence. Healing begins with recognition, with saying, what happened to me mattered. My needs were real. My pain is valid. For some adults, healing starts by celebrating small wins. Maya, a client described in the research, would bake a cake and force herself to acknowledge, I did this. It matters. For Alex, it began by naming the wound. I was ignored. That's why I feel invisible now. This process is called self-reparenting. It means giving yourself the attunement you didn't get, pausing before apologizing unnecessarily, setting a boundary and reminding yourself it's okay to take up space. Neuroscience reminds us that the brain isn't fixed. Every time you speak up and are heard, every time you set a boundary and it's respected, the nervous system learns a new script. Small acts of presence chip away at years of silence. Healing also breaks cycles. Parents who were ignored often risk ignoring their own kids, not out of cruelty, but because they don't know another way. Recognizing the pattern, consciously choosing to respond differently, that's how generational chains are broken. The ignored child who learns to see themselves becomes the adult who teaches others to feel seen. And that's the truth I want to leave you with today. The ignored child often grows into the adult who refuses to ignore others. And in that choice, imperfect, messy, brave, we discover something profound. You were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting to be seen. Thank you for staying with me until the end. This was Echoes of the Mind. Subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the hidden psychology behind families, love, and healing. Until next time.